Thank you, Mo. Thank you, Gary and Kaylee and Jim, and thank you, everyone, for your presence here this evening on June the 11th, Davis Day. The 90th anniversary commemoration, celebration of the taking of the life of William Davis by company police in the great 1925 coal and steel strike in industrial Cape Breton. For 90 years, Davis Day, the 11th of June, has stood for the integrity and the dignity of the struggle for social justice in Nova Scotia. And so it's an immeasurable privilege on such a day to be able to announce that I have registered today and have established my candidacy for the position of leader of the Nova Scotia New Democratic Party. And I do so on the basis of one single idea. The idea that the present moment is calling for our party to make a turn in our path. And the name of the road under which we're being called to turn is very simple: social, environmental, and economic justice. And the politics behind this one single idea are equally simple. I am an egalitarian. Gary Ramey in the House of Assembly used to say, "Gary, don't use that word so much. I'm looking across the floor and I see that it confuses them." I am a progressive. I am a socialist. I am a redistributivist. I am an anti-relegationist. I'm against anyone ever being relegated over to the side. And I will say, echoing Kaylee's earlier comments, that for a number of years I was of the view that the NDP was not necessarily all that relevant for people of these convictions and this persuasion. This changed for me, however, a number of years ago, when for a couple of years in the late 80s and early 90s, I lived in the United States. And I learned in the process of living there what a tremendous difference it makes for us to live and work and engage as we do in this context, this situation, this setting, the setting where we live, this country, where the social democratic tradition over 3/4 of a century has carved out a space on the screen of popular life for the idea that people ought to be able to have it better than they do and that people ought to be more equal. And
that's right.
And so I'm offering for the position of leader of our party on the basis simply of the thought that deepening poverty and widening inequality are these tremendous challenges which stand at the moment before us, and it is the mission and it is the purpose of the NDP to do something about it in Nova Scotia. We need to commit ourselves to becoming, in Nova Scotia, the first jurisdiction to eradicate poverty in North America. It's nowhere near acceptable that we have 7,000 kids in our province who are fed from food banks, or that 1 in 5 children in Nova Scotia, 1 in 4 in the Valley, 1 in 3 where I'm serving the church at the moment in Cape Breton, 1 in 3 in Cape Breton children brought up in homes where the income is below the poverty line.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
It's unacceptable in large part because it is avoidable, because it's fixable, because it's in the category of problems that are amenable to solution. The solution, of course, has many parts. One of the parts is a minimum wage that is some approximation of a living wage, a $15 living wage. Another important step down the road to the eradication of poverty will be the adoption of the principle of grocery security. The principle of grocery security is a principle that requires the government. It's a principle our party adopted at our meeting last fall. It requires the government to set the income assistance rate at a level such that a reasonably prudent person in a non-emergency circumstance with that as their income ought to be able to be assured that they, like others, could get their food in a grocery store rather than in a food bank. And Jack Layton used to say all the time, don't let them tell you it can't be done. It can be done. When we were in office, we were able to obtain the costing to figure out exactly what we got. The whole price tag for establishing the principle of grocery security for every household with a dependent child in Nova Scotia is annually $16 million.
Wow.
Yeah. So we stand. Absolutely. We stand in the place relative to this great goal of the eradication of poverty in Canada. We stand relative to that goal now in the place where Canada stood relative to the goal of Medicare prior to Tommy Douglas and the Saskatchewan CCF. At that time, everyone who had looked at the question knew socialized medicine was the direction the country was going to have to go in. Every major study of the matter had agreed on this one main point, but there was an ingredient that was missing. There needed to be one party and one government that would say, this is the matter on which we will stake our claim, on which we will stand or fall. We need to be the party and that government for the eradication of poverty in Nova Scotia. And we need to commit ourselves to the project of the extension of public funding for post-secondary education to include free tuition for a first certificate, degree, ticket, or diploma. We know now. 70% of all jobs require some kind of post-secondary education. That's known. And we also know that one of the great challenges before us as a people is to deal with the out-migration of the young. And everybody knows that one of the primary push factors towards out-migration is accumulated student debt. Therefore, it is not acceptable for us in Nova Scotia to face the situation we face where our students graduating have the highest per capita student debt of students anywhere in the country outside of Prince Edward Island, or that the average Nova Scotia graduating college student embarks upon the world with a $37,000 debt.
Shame.
So what is needed is a program, an investment through the public in a generation that will establish this free tuition and at the same time will implement a program through the income tax system of the forgiveness of student debt. But in order for any of this to be accomplished, we as Social Democrats have got to do something quite dramatic. We have got to reacquire the confidence in social investment, which was at the core of what our party was founded for in the first place. Because our opponents will say, oh, you can't do that because how are you going to pay for it? And we need to reacquire our egalitarian backbone, stand up straight and say, it is not a question of how you're going to pay for it, it's a question of when. We already pay. We pay for all the consequences of poverty and inequality. We pay for it in long-term negative health outcomes. We pay for it in remedial education spending. We pay for it in all kinds of expenses related to otherwise avoidable criminal justice spending. It's not a question of whether you're going to pay. It's a question of whether or not we're finally going to get smart and begin to pay up front before it's too late. We, Nova Scotia, can do so much better than what is before us at this present moment. We can do better than a government which, in abolishing the Department of Rural and Economic Development, has abandoned the part of the province outside of Halifax just as surely as the Genesee and Wyoming boys are itching to abandon that railroad across Cape Breton. And we can do better than the assault on the creative economy and the hack job through the axing of the film tax credit, and we can do better than the assault on the knowledge economy that is Bill 100, and we can do better than the assault on home care workers and on nurses and on everybody else who stands in the way of this dogmatic adherence to an austerian agenda. And speaking about standing up against a dogmatic agenda, let's hear it for the Halifax water workers and the defense of the And we can certainly do better than a province where the visually impaired are not able to get the support that they used to be able to get because of cuts to the CNIB. And where those working their way towards mental health wholeness are not able to get the help they used to be able to get because of the cuts to the Schizophrenia Society in Nova Scotia. Where people in the trenches of the wars against bulimia and anorexia are not able to get the support they were able to get not very long ago because cuts at eating disorders in Nova Scotia. And we can certainly do better than a government which, for the second year in a row, has increased the personal allowance and shelter allowance components of income assistance, and the poverty reduction credit, and the affordable living tax credit, and the Nova Scotia child benefit by a grand total of zip, squat, tweet, not of nothing, zero, which means they cut it by the level of inflation. Yeah. We not only can do better than that, we did do better than that. When it was our turn to bring in our second budget, that was the budget brought in the spring of 2010. That was the budget that included the annual transfer of $20 million to households making incomes less than $30,000 in the affordable living tax credit. That's what we brought in when it was our turn to have our second budget. That's also when it was our turn to have our second budget in 2010. That's when all provincial income tax was abolished for seniors who received the supplement. We can do better, we did do better, and we are going to do much better. Some of the most important public words in Nova Scotia are in Glace Bay. There, carved on the headstone of the greatest, in my opinion, Nova Scotian, J.B. McLaughlin, hear the words from the Bible: "Open your mouth and plead the cause of the poor." That's what we're here for. So let's do it. Thank you.